Welcome. Welcome to Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Today is Music Sunday, and our service is called This is Home. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tara Tresner-Kirsch, and I am the music director of this church. My pronouns are she, her. Reverend Suzanne, our minister, has this Sunday off because I am leading our annual Music Sunday worship service. Today in our worship, we will look back at 2 years since the arrival of the global pandemic, and next Sunday, we will celebrate the official arrival of spring. Welcome, everyone. We are so glad to have you with us in worship this morning, whether you are here in the sanctuary or on Zoom. And as the pandemic eases, we are pleased to be able to reduce our restrictions in this room and beyond. As Jeannie from our safety team announced last week, masks are still required, thank you all, except when leading worship. But we have removed all barriers in the sanctuary, our capacity is higher, and you can sit wherever you want, yay! The hope is that conditions will continue to improve and that when the safety team next meets on April 5th, the consensus may be that masks become optional and we will be able to share coffee and food indoors together. Stay tuned at the beginning of April for further announcements. We know, however, that even as cases drop, folks will have different levels of comfort and health vulnerabilities. Yours may even change from week to week. Not used to this Madonna mic. I'm not the Madonna that Reverend Suzanne is. Anyway, for example, 1 week you may feel awesome to hug all of your church friends, but a couple weeks later, you're concerned about an upcoming visit to an immunocompromised relative. For that reason, we're trying an experiment with these wristbands. I hope some of you got them on your way in, which are in the entryway, and Jenny was passing them out. Choose one to signal your comfort in interacting with others. Red equals, please give me some space, 2020 version. Yellow means, please talk to me, ask first. And green means, bring it in, I'm ready for the hugs. I see some hug-ready people back there. And as you can see, I've got a red wristband because, you know, I have an unvaccinated child at home, and so we are continuing to be careful. We all have our reasons. And these new wristbands are another way we are trying to take care of one another and feel safe being together in community. Another way we take care of each other is through pledging to support this church. Here with an update about our annual pledge drive is team member Kathy Sang. Come on up, Kathy. Good morning.
Good morning. So as Reverend Suzanne announced last Sunday, this is the month of our annual pledge drive. Hopefully you all received your pledge packet in the mail this week. Looks something like this. And if you didn't, please let our collector, Wendy Mastronardi, know because she's got extras and she can get one to you. You can also find all the pledge materials on the church website, and Bill's going to put that up for everyone to see. The website link is melroseuu.org/pledge-drive-2022. No funds are due at this time. What we need is to know how much you feel you can pledge to support next year's operating budget. And you can submit your pledge by putting it in the collection plate. You can mail it or drop it off here at church any day. What I find easiest is just to submit your pledge online. You can click on the online pledge form link on the web page, and it takes less than 20 seconds, really, or 30 seconds to fill in the form, submit it, and within 5 minutes or so, you'll get a confirmation back. We hope everyone will submit their pledge and puzzle piece by Celebration Sunday, which is March 27th. Reverend Suzanne's planning a really fun service. She's going to let herself go wild. And that day, and the pledge drive team will host a special celebratory coffee hour, hopefully outside if the weather is lovely. If you can attend on the 27th, you can bring your pledge and puzzle piece in then. But if you can't be here on the 27th, or if you're like me, I like to submit my pledge while I'm thinking about it so I can check it off my to-do list and not worry about it, that's fine too. Whatever works for you. On behalf of the Pledge Drive team, thank you in advance for your always generous support. If everyone tries just to give a little more than they're giving this year, maybe $5 a month more, 10, 20, whatever works for you, together we'll reach our goal of $210,000. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathy. As you know, our pledge drive often includes testimonials from our members. When they come forward and tell us about what our church means to them, here to share a testimonial today are Liz Tishoni and Craig Noto, who joined our church in 2020 during the pandemic.
Morning. My name is Liz Tishoni, and my husband, Craig Noto, and I were asked to share what our congregation means to us and why we choose to pledge a financial contribution each year. About 7 years ago, Craig met Rebecca Mooney when he began volunteering for the Melrose Alliance Against Violence. After a while, Rebecca, whom Craig and I had already grown to respect and admire, shared with Craig that she thought her church, the Unitarian Universalist Church, one across from the library, would be a great match for our family, and so we gave it a try. One of the things we had been looking for in a church was a way to deepen our connection to our community, and MUUC delivered. Craig still regularly sees Rebecca at MAVE meetings, where she serves as the executive director, and Craig sits on the executive board. Craig also has the pleasure of working with Mike Aldrich on Men for MAVE. When our family drives across town to visit my parents, it's not uncommon to run into Janice and Don Bissix and their dog Ella, who live just around the corner from Grammy and Grandpa. Recently, I nervously walked our son James up the front steps of Follow Your Art Community Studios, which is run by our own Chris Rodolico, to drop James off for his first art class. And who should open the door to greet us but Jane Foley? Her familiar, friendly face instantly sent me at ease. Craig was also delighted to see Mary Beth Griscom there just this past week when he went to pick up James. In pre-pandemic times, Craig used to shoot hoops and practice his impressive slam dunks with Alistair MUUC on the basketball court at the Y. He told me not to add that part. But he still has it. I would also often run into an MUUC member, Erin Hobenaudet, at our 5 a.m. Y workouts. Now we're happy to see Erin and her dog Rudy walking around our neighborhood when we're out with our puppy Milo. Last summer, Lillian and I had the pleasure of attending one of the summer art markets on the lawn of the Beebe Estate, where we ran into Michelle Desvaux selling her beautiful hand-printed textiles. Often, as I walk our children, James and Lillian, up the hill to school in the morning, we see Nancy Nichols and Michael O'Connor, smiling and waving to us from their home, a warm send-off at the beginning of the school day. And the first time I attended a meeting of the Melrose Human Rights Commission, I was surprised and delighted to see Reverend Suzanne, whom I hadn't realized serves as the clergy liaison to the commission. MUUC is fulfilling our family's hope to deepen our connection to our community more than we could have imagined.
Can y'all hear me? Hello? All right, there we go. We choose to contribute financially because we know that this church and this community could not persist without financial support. As we know, our church is self-sustaining and depends on its members to provide the income to operate our budget. Without these critical contributions, we would not be able to pay our talented staff, to maintain our beautiful sanctuary, or support the numerous social justice causes that are near and dear to our heart. As it did for so many of us, the pandemic had a profound impact on our family and how we interact with our community. We're thankful for the opportunity to be back in person with all of you in the sanctuary and to connect with all of you attending virtually. And we're happy to contribute to ensure our community continues to thrive. Thank you.
We are so pleased to have you with us. Now let's move forward with today's worship. Helping us today are Ginger Lazarus, our chat host in the Zoom room, and somewhere around here, Jenny Wengrovius, our in-person usher. There she is. You could give her your paper joys and sorrows this morning. Thank you both for pitching in. And thank you to our wonderful choir members who have helped me create this service. Now, let's take our weekly moment to greet one another. Those here in person can wave to each other and say hello, or even if you spy those green wristbands, go in for a handshake or a hug. Folks on Zoom, please switch to gallery view and scroll through the pages. Let's wave to each other and say good morning. Oh, there they are. Good morning, everyone. Oh, I spot my family. Hello, everybody in the room. It's so good to have so many of you here. I call us to worship with these words from our first Pandemic Music Sunday, which was our second online service on March 22nd, 2020. By the poet and early 20th century civil rights leader James Weldon Johnson, this is The Gift to Sing. Sometimes the mist overhangs my path and blackening clouds about me cling, but oh, I have a magic way to turn the gloom to cheerful day, and I softly sing. And if the way grows darker still, shadowed by sorrow's somber wing, with glad defiance in my throat, I pierce the darkness with a note and sing and sing. I brood not over the broken past, nor dread whatever time may bring. No nights are dark, no days are long, while in my heart there swells a song, and I can sing. Now, let us worship together. As it is Music Sunday, our chalice reading will be a song offered by the choir. The text of this reading is by the Reverend Dr. William F. Schultz, former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart.
Come in.
opening hymn today has been a bit of a theme song for the choir. We've been singing it together without the use of sheet music since February 2017, and each new person who has joined us has learned it early on. I have such a visceral memory of the first time I walked into this sanctuary, and there was the choir singing in a circle with zero assistance from me. I remember thinking, we have truly made it. This is what it means to be a singing community. Ever since, this song has been an anchor and a home base, just as this church building is an anchor for this community. Welcome back. This is home. So please rise in body or in spirit. You have been given lyrics in the room if you are here with me, but you can also just repeat after me. So let's sing together. This is home. This is home. Where I belong. Where I belong. In this breath. In this breath. In this heart. In this heart. This is home. This is home. Where I belong. Where I belong. In this voice. In this voice. In this song. In this song. Now with the assistance of the choir, we're going to put it all together. This is home, where I belong. In this breath, in this heart. This is home, where I belong. In this voice, in this song. One more time. This is home, where I belong. In this breath, in this heart. This is home, where I belong. In this voice, in this song. Please remain standing for our what do we call it now, y'all? Now please remain standing and let us join together in the words of our covenant, followed by the song of aspiration. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to the end in kind fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Let peace, good will,
Exactly 2 years ago today, the board of this congregation voted to suspend in-person worship. Along with organizations across the globe, we shut our doors to protect each other's health and safety within and beyond our church community. For our story time today, we will take a few minutes to reflect and remember a pivotal moment in our world, in this community, and in our lives. Let's take a deep breath together. Were you in worship on March 1st, 2020? It was our annual pledge kickoff Sunday, and the building was humming with energy as 90 people gathered in the sanctuary that day. Here we are. Can you spot the back of a beloved church friend? Maybe someone sitting close to you? Do you remember listening to then President Chuck Foley speaking? Our choir was there too. We sang Come Into This Place as an introit that day. You just heard it again as we lit the chalice this morning. We told a story of Anansi, that clever spider from West African and Caribbean folklore who thought he could keep all the wisdom of the world to himself. Reverend Suzanne was Anansi, of course, and Michael O'Connor was the sun god. And when Anansi, aka Reverend Suzanne, dropped that golden bucket of wisdom, aka a bucket of confetti, it spilled everywhere. And I got to shower you all with confetti we made out of old papers in a cross-cut shredder. It was a mess. And so joyful, and we were covered in confetti. I remember people in line for their joys and sorrows still picking it out of each other's hair. We had metaphorical wisdom all over ourselves and all over the pews and all over the rug. Next slide, Bill. And then we sang the children out of the sanctuary and down to RV for the penultimate time. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. And then it continues. Little did we know we would need that wisdom in those months to come, and we would need that wisdom in the years to come. The beginning of March 2020 is a moment in time in which befores and afters began. For a while, we'd asked, do you remember the last time when? The last time you saw a particular friend, hugged a beloved, went to a restaurant, saw the bottom half of a receptionist's face. The last time we gathered in this sanctuary all together. This past month, I asked the choir to reflect on that moment in time. We were actually on the brink of Music Sunday. We were in the thick of it. They reflected on the moment right before and right as our lives, our communities, and indeed our music was upended by a global pandemic.
Kathy Kellier and Tom Kurse and I went to the Horace Mann School and played recorders for the kids in Stacy Weinberg's, her daughter's class. That was March 3rd.
I went to a Bobby McFerrin concert in the first week of March, in which it wouldn't have been surprising if we got COVID, but we did not. There was a lot of singing. It was very good.
I actually sing with Polymnia, and we were 2.5 weeks from our performance of Considering Matthew Shepard. We had it learned. We were just at the point, there's a lot of solo movements. I mean, I hadn't rehearsed a solo movement in which I was taking part. It was like a quartet or trio. But we were going to rehearse it next week. Just an enormous amount of fundraising and all this stuff had gone into it. And just done, and we're not rescheduling it soon, because it just takes a lot of vocal readiness to be able to sing it. It's a really demanding piece of music. So it's sort of hanging in the ether for me, waiting to sing it.
I remember I had performed in the Mystic Chorale, and I went to the first rehearsal, and here were there all these people, and then the second rehearsal, I went to the rehearsal and then I walked out. You know, we hadn't closed down quite yet, but it was coming. And I remember, why am I singing in this group with all these people, over 100 people? And I go, this does not feel safe for me. And about 2 weeks later, they canceled Mystic Crown.
I went to Merrill's Symphony in March, the last one.
The guy who announced the Melrose Symphony Orchestra kept saying, and don't forget to wash your hands.
Right, that's right. That's right.
I remember the moment when I realized it was serious, and it was the moment where I started to get the phone calls. And Gardner Museum called me, and Boston Symphony called me, and H&H called me. Email from BU, and I got the email from BEMF, from Boston Early Music Festival, and all of these people in Boston Lyric Opera, and just the Manual Music, just canceling. Watching my calendar clear. Surreal moment of watching the entirety of one's musical life, where that's most of your life, sort of like disappear out from under your feet. It was just a really memorable experience for me.
Thank you, choir. Each week, we take a few minutes out for prayer and meditation, a time for each of us to center ourselves, connect with the holy. Let's start by relaxing into our chairs, feeling our feet on the floor, letting our bodies settle. Let's breathe in and out together. In, head out. In this meditation time, first we'll join together in our centering song, then we sit for a couple minutes of shared silence, and then we will speak to one another of our joys and sorrows, and then I will lead us in prayer. For our worship theme this month is Renewing Faith. It's a month to reconnect with our values and rebuild our community. Our centering song for the month is the first verse of the hymn, We Would Be One. Here's our choir performing it with a little extra video, connecting it with our pledge drive theme of putting all of the pieces together. Sing along as you like, and then we'll enter into our time of shared silence.
To show to all what new God
Every Sunday, we share with one another the joys and sorrows of our lives, our personal milestones. We listen with openness and compassion, letting this sharing weave us into a strong community. First, if you have a sorrow to share today, please type it in the chat box now, and I will read it aloud. I will not read it aloud. Ginger?
Yes,
Would you please read our sorrows aloud this morning?
sure.
Thank you.
From James, a candle of concern for our friend Martin P., whose mother is approaching her final days. Although we only met her a few times, she was part of our honeymoon adventure, lending us her seaside home in the Netherlands for the first few days of our marriage. From Florence, candle of love and support for my brother Tommy, who is recovering from surgery. That's all I see right now.
Okay. Give me one moment. Thank you all for your patience. Let us take a moment together to hold these sorrows with love. May those who are hurting feel our love and support. May we reach out with kindness. Jenny lights one candle as a beacon of care for all the sorrows, spoken and unspoken today. And now I ask for all the joys you'd like to share. Please type them into the chat box, and I will read these aloud.
I have 3 joys from the congregation. The first is from Nancy N. Thank you to everyone who last week helped fill our food pantry bin, along with gift cards and cash donations. Yay! And just so you all know, you can do that every week. We accept donations all the time. A joy from Dan G. To hear the choir again after 2 long years was a many-fold blessing. And a joy from Liz Tishoni, a candle of joy for our children, James and Lillian, as unmasking at school began this past week. We're in awe of the strength and courage James and Lillian have shown these past 2 years and are so proud of them.
And online, we have a candle of joy for Stacy, Viva, Heather, and my Daisy Girl Scout troop. This is from Florence, holding their mid-year ceremony at MUUC this afternoon. From Beth, why joy for this powerful service? It brings back a lot of memories. On this date, I remember meeting with a Cape Cod retreat group at my home. Gretchen Locke, Kathy Sang, Rebecca Mooney, and I discussed the virus that hit the Biogen conference in Cambridge. None of us at the table felt vulnerable at that time. And one last candle of joy, from Dave and Kathy F., we welcomed our 3rd grandchild this week, a baby girl. I hope I'm saying this right. Leighton Catherine Boone was born on Tuesday to Caitlin and Ben. Caitlin and Leighton are at home and both are doing well. Ginger, did I miss any of the joys in the chat this morning?
No, you did not.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing these joys, which help us connect and remind us all of the beauty of living. And now Jenny will light one more candle to shine out our thanks for all those many blessings in our lives. As our prayer on the 2nd anniversary of the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic, I offer you words heavily adapted from a reflection called Keep Singing by Reverend Erin J. Walter. She writes, "We will remember this pandemic as a time we often felt close to ruin. When we lost jobs to layoffs, our bands couldn't play, our kids struggled, and our churches were confined to computers. When millions worldwide died from COVID-19 and the rest of us grappled with grief at a distance when we sang hymns on mute. But today, we pray we also remember the moments of creativity and wonder. The dance classes over Zoom, the books cherished in quiet moments, our practices of resilience and mutual aid, and of grace and forgiveness. And of course, we take heart that even on mute or alone in the dark, we kept singing. In the words of Patti Smith, in times of strife, we have our imagination, we have our creative impulse, which are things that are more important than material things. They are the things we should magnify. This morning, Spirit of life and love, keep us connected to divine inspiration and to each other. May we be mindful of what we magnify. Spark our imaginations to create the world we dream about. Amen, and blessed be. Now is the time for our offertory. Our church is a self-supporting organization funded by your generous annual pledge. You may also contribute to our weekly collection plate, which we split every month with a deserving cause. You can donate either here using the orange. You can donate either way using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. And folks here in the room can leave their donations in the collection plate at the back. For March, our giving partner chosen by our choir is Shelter Music Boston, which delivers monthly chamber music concerts to homeless shelters and recovery centers, providing classical music as a social service. Half of our collection this month will go to Shelter Music Boston. And for our offertory music today, we have a 6-minute compilation of highlights from this past 2 years of music and worship at MUUC. I offer this video to you with a tremendous amount of gratitude for all of our musicians who contributed their considerable gifts during a time when sharing music together was often really, really hard.
Ancestors to my left and my right, to walk with me, to walk with me, to raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. More than I can do. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. Listen to the drumming on the other side. Lift up in the meantime. says dance. Spirit says dance. Spirit says dance. Spirit says dance. Spirit says dance. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me that I might know your mind. Slowly, slowly they return to the small woodland land alone. Before their bright and breeze release, ride down the wind and we are pleased to walk on radiant summer rays. Oh, light come down to earth, be praised. Shivery elves, shivery elves, that's Halloween nitty-gritty. Morning crow, leave us alone. Lully-lutty-day-o, lully-lutty-day-o, for love forever ceasing, never in our hearts to reign. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star in excelsis Deo, Gloria in excelsis Deo. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the web. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you, musicians, including those of you who didn't quite make it into this video. Truly, thank you. Do you remember what you were doing when you heard that this community, this home, was closing its doors in March 2020? What were your thoughts? What were your fears? In discussing this anniversary with Reverend Suzanne this past week, she reminded me that there were members of this congregation who believed we were finished. Once we closed our doors, they would never reopen. How could we survive such a sudden separation from each other? I remember the shock of suddenly being alone in my home trying to make music. If I wanted to make music by myself, I kept ruminating, I would have applied to a conservatory, shut myself in a practice room for hours a day, and become the best cellist I could be. But I never wanted that. Music for me is such a communal experience. It's all about the people I'm with and the sounds we create together. That's like church too, right? Especially in Unitarian Universalism, we are bound together by covenants, not creeds. We need each other to make worship and community together. So, despite our fears, we figured out how to be together virtually and quickly. Dan Griscom and others were running around with equipment and doing phone consults so we could get everybody online. Staff were learning new skills at a breakneck pace. We would leave no one behind. But what about music making? Music is uniquely difficult to make over Zoom or other online platforms because of the limitations of delayed internet connections. For the rest of our sermon time today, I'm going to hand it back to the choir. 2 quick notes before we begin this video. As most of you know, I spent several months out on maternity leave in the fall of 2020. We had a guest music director during that time. Thank you, Personnel Committee, for all the work to make that happen. So, when we refer to Vivian, we are talking about that wonderful guest music director. This video is just under 8 minutes long and will complete our sermon time this morning.
This art form, which is as important to me as eating, was sort of considered unsafe and was in some cases vilified. You know, the story about that choir where so many people got sick, and you know, it was really, really hard, and it just meant that I was just striving right from the get-go to understand how we could make music without being together. It was just an urgent need.
And do you remember that most of us barely knew how to operate Zoom? Let alone record, let alone.
Didn't have Zoom on any machine, hadn't even heard of it, I think. But choir directors all over the place were going, oh my God. So they were laying groundwork and sharing with each other, and Tara was learning, and I was learning, and I was just learning because I can't help it. I learn. And Vivian was learning. So there was a lot of people floundering in a lot of directions. And so, you know, Vivian kind of brought some of that to us. But it had been a large community of choir people and church people and other music people coming together to figure out how to make that work.
We tried so many things. I remember Jamulus. I remember the acapella app where we had to pass it around from person to person. We did audio only. So many things, that everything took a long time, didn't have the quality that we had hoped for, left people out who we wanted to be able to sing with us. One early attempt from Vivian was that she invited all of you to come into the sanctuary separately to sing a song, one by one, just on your own with Vivian. Joni tells us about what that experience was like in this next clip.
But it felt very different being there by yourself with her. And there was nothing around it. It was just that this whole place was empty. Where's the rest of them? And I thank everybody for it. But it was very scary. You know, walking in and watching this camera looking at you and you're singing.
Eventually, through the hard work of Vivian and then Beth, and the brilliant idea from Robert Suzanne that why don't we just take a video of the Zoom session and then add the individual recordings together. With those ideas and those people, we made videos start to work. You saw the first one in Angels We Have Heard on High in the compilation from our Offertory. But we were still in our homes singing by ourselves. Some of our choir members reflect next on some of the upsides of our Zoom-only music world.
I certainly attended a lot of recorded concerts, you know, like, or not recorded, but online concerts, like seeing Alistair's Opening Doors series. I saw most of those and they were terrific. And they wouldn't have been the same in real life. They'd be different. They'd be fine, I'm sure. They'd be good, but they were really worthwhile.
Yeah, and that whole show, the whole Alistair Opening Doors thing, wouldn't have happened before COVID.
Right.
It depended on people being remote and musicians not having work, so we could afford to pay them and they could come and sing with Alistair on screen. It was really a unique opportunity for Alistair to be able to do that. It was really cool. Yeah.
And the quickness with which we can pivot when either there's a COVID outbreak or, say, a large snowstorm.
Yeah, I think it's never going to go back, right? That if there's a snowstorm, if there's a pandemic, we'll just be able to pivot in a way we never could before.
Yeah.
All that said, in our conversation together, there was an agreement. There is truly nothing like being together and singing in person.
But being in person, the blending, the way we can match volumes and intonations and tone is, you just can't do it any other way.
And you do it in person without even knowing you're doing it some of the time, which is pretty awesome.
You also can be, you hear it when it's working, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Even though we're singing in masks, Beth's a soprano, so I can really hear her and be able to get support from that direct audio right next to me. But there is something about singing in person, like when we were singing in that half circle, it just felt like we're connecting with each other. That I love Zoom. I still feel I'm connecting, but it's a different auditorily to sing in person.
Either is something that goes beyond that in terms of the connections between people. And like I'm glad we have Zoom. I can connect, but I can't connect on the kind of larger level than I can with people in person. And for me, when I experience connection with people, like that's like my experience of the holy, like really, really it is. And so when I'm singing in person with other people, that is where God is. And I experience that incredibly fully. So it's so exciting. And I don't care what I'm singing. I could be singing like the ABCs. But if I'm singing with other people, I'm generating this feeling of community and of spiritual connection. And it's just an incredibly, like, it's a feeling so much bigger than I am.
I second that. There's something about singing with people. That is why I sing.
Singing Blue Boat Home last weekend was
unbelievable.
It was so fun.
It's great that we have recreated. There is still something that's missing. Like some, like the cat when they see the squirrel outside and they can't get it. I'm just so excited to be able to embrace that thing fully again. Although, you know, we've made do really, really well in the meantime.
Thank you, choir. Come on up, lead the closing hymn. Our closing hymn this morning is an old favorite, I Choose Love by Lindy Thompson and Mark Miller. We sing it this morning in triumph. We've chosen love in hard times. We have risen from what sometimes seemed like the end. The choir will sing the first couple of verses on their own, and then I will invite you to rise and join us. For those of you who are worshiping in the sanctuary with us this morning, the words are on the sheet of paper you were handed earlier.
In the midst of pain, I choose love.
Remain standing and join me in the chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, but not the... Thank you all. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen. Our service has ended. In just a minute, we will join in our coffee hour. Paul will play us a postlude on the organ this morning, the March from Trilogy on BACH by local composer Carson Kuhlman. Afterwards, people here in church can join the choir and parish hall conversation. There are a whole bunch of chairs in there. As a red wristband wearer, I will be outside after just a couple minutes in parish hall if you want to join me there. Folks on Zoom are welcome to stay there for a chat. Thank you all for worshiping with us today.